Cool.
Hi, welcome back to our interview series. I'm really excited today to introduce you guys to Ollie Benn, who is the partner of Neoci. Morning, good afternoon, Ollie.
Morning,
How are
Steve. You're
you?
right.
Yeah, I'm very well. How are
Very,
you?
yeah, very well, thank you.
Good, good. Ollie, just want to give us a little bit of background about yourself and about the business?
Yeah, so Neoci started about 12 months ago, and we are a telecoms recruiter. Um, I started with my business partner, Darrol, who comes from about 20 years of working in the telecom sector. I myself come from the recruitment sector, obviously, worked in recruitment for about 18, 19 years. So we've been friends since we were 15 years old. And we have always talked about doing something together, but it's just never been the right time. And Darrol found himself in a position where he was available just after the pandemic. And I said, well, why don't we team up and do something? So we've got, obviously, Darrol comes from the telecoms background, so he's got a great network and an understanding of telecoms as an industry. I have worked in telecom space before anyway, but obviously I've got the recruitment part, and it's gone really well. We've definitely had a great impact in the telecom sector. We've got some key clients that we wanted to work with.
Nice.
So it's been really enjoyable.
So what's the kind of, so obviously you guys set up post-pandemic as such, where
Yeah.
I think most business owners can probably empathize with what the recruitment market has looked like since then. What's
Yeah.
the biggest impact you guys have seen, kind of like from the COVID through to where we are today, the situation around the economy and everything else? What's the biggest impacts you guys are seeing in the recruitment market?
Recruitment market, obviously, we're only part of a small piece because we just focus on telecoms, and not every industry has been like this, but telecoms has been booming because of the shift post-pandemic of everybody moving to remote working. It's meant that our clients are getting very, very busy, and there's new technologies like Teams and Zoom have made it completely different. So our industry has been booming. We've done well, they've done well at what's happened, in all honesty. I think at first everybody froze and thought, what on earth are we going to do? Perhaps people got rid of, or companies got rid of some people they maybe didn't want to keep, or for whatever reason couldn't keep them. But since then, they have been trying very hard to make sure they retain the people they've got, which has been a challenge for us.
100%.
For sure. Yeah.
I think it's, you speak very specifically about the telecoms industry there, but I know it's been a challenging journey for lots of different industries and sectors kind of coming out of the back of the pandemic and into where we are today. But kind of a little bit more about you as a business owner then. Kind of what's the journey been like for you over the last year or so then? And what's the kind of biggest learnings you've taken away from taking that step into the business ownership?
I think in terms of biggest learnings, I think for us as a business, it's probably been more on a less on a recruitment perspective, more on a personal journey, in the sense that perhaps I think we've learned to get a real grasp of the financials.
Okay.
I think before that, I think I know about recruitment, I understand it to a large extent, and we obviously have telecoms understanding, but running a business is a different matter, and being on top of your finances. I think it's one thing to make money, but it's another thing to be able to keep the money you've made and not let go of it. And you've got to make some wise decisions on where you're going to invest your money, or be it people or technologies and things. And there's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of things that might work for some businesses that don't work for others, or don't work for some, work for some people, don't work for other people. So we've learned a lot about how we manage that, how we forecast for the future.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of like, would you say, that kind of business ownership level rather than the technical element of the job and what you do as a business?
Yeah, I think so, because I think our ultimate aim in terms of how we grow the business, our focus has been on, if we just understand the clients properly, if we have a great network within the industry, if we go out of our way to deliver like the best service we can, then we should grow. You should have a good business in that sense. But that's not everything to a business. There's so many other parts, and financial is one of the key parts. I mean, it's so important.
For sure. I think it's probably one of the most important, if not the most important.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the kind of issues and challenges then that you faced as a business, as a partnership with yourself and Darrol? What are the biggest challenges or issues you faced, and how have you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenges, going back to sort of more from a recruitment perspective, has been the market, in the sense that although I said telecoms has been, the candidate market has changed drastically. We went from lots of people out of work to now it seems like, there's more there's more jobs out there than candidates. I think that's been reported in the press. And that has made it difficult to get the right people for the clients. The other side of it is counter offers. That's been very tough. Before it wasn't something it was on our radar. People could always get counter offered, but usually companies would be okay to let people go when they gave notice. But after the pandemic, and they've already had to let people go, they certainly don't want to let go of the people they've kept. So they're fighting to keep them. That's driven salaries up significantly. And then there's that sort of education piece with the clients, that actually the salaries that they're thinking of paying, they're not going to quite cut it. So it's been a challenge, and we've had to address it head on.
How are you guys overcoming that then? How are you working with your clients to help them overcome
that? I think the main thing, especially with counter offers, is almost expecting it to happen. So we will always ask the candidates, what do you think the reaction will be? And people are usually pretty honest. I'll be interested. Sometimes people say I'll be interested to see what their offer would be. And that is a risk from our perspective. It's a risk from our clients' perspective. Then other people, it's not just about the money. There's other reasons they're leaving, and that's fine. And usually, there's supposedly a rule. I don't know if there's any scientific research behind it, but in recruitment, there's supposedly a rule that 80% of people, roughly, who are counter-offered, leave within the next 6 to 12 months.
Right. Okay.
And I would say, I don't know if that's been sort of researched in a huge amount of depth, but it makes sense. It ties in with what our experience is.
I guess the main point for that is people make the decision to leave on more than just financial reward, right? So actually, the financial reward may be greater, but the reality is the culture of the business they're staying in, the way they're managed, the people they're working with is going to remain consistent. So it's kind of almost like a plaster over a wound, almost, isn't it?
It is, and that's the difficult thing. I think for most companies, that they'll expect that person to leave, but what they're kind of doing is buying themselves more time by keeping them.
To go and re-recruit themselves to bring someone else in. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or just push it out to kick the can out, if you like. They know they're going to have to rehire, but they don't want to do it yet. I think often they'll make promises to people. Sometimes they don't even give them pay rises. We've had people who have accepted counter offers where their money wasn't even as good as what they've been offered by a client, but they've made them a ton of promises about promotions and the future and things like that. And those are the ones that usually come back and say, "I made a mistake. Is that role still available?" It's not,
for sure.
So it's a difficult one.
So kind of difficult marketplace, difficult landscape. Ollie, what keeps you motivated? What's your motivation in this?
Good question. I think we are absolutely hellbent on growing the business within the telco sector. So we want to be the go-to telecoms recruiter. And to do that, the only way we can do that is to focus on consistently delivering like the best service we can. Being partners to our clients, and also only working with clients that we want to work with, rather than, sometimes we'll come across clients that actually we've worked with clients at the start where really the way they operate from a moral perspective and the way they are, it doesn't work for us. It's not what we want to be aligned with. So we only want to work with the specific, and you can't completely choose your customer base. That's almost impossible to completely choose that, but you can be discerning about who you work with. And I think that helps with not just your reputation, but also your mental health of you and your team as well.
For sure. Working with nice people makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah, and you don't want to place people into a company where they're going to be really unhappy, because it's not going to work out in the long term for you or them. So I think that's it.
So kind of in and amongst all of that, then, big journey for yourself and for Darrol, your business partner as well. So what have you learned about yourself? What's this kind of taught you about yourself, Ollie?
I think the main sort of learning I've had over the last year or so is that I it's more about sort of, I guess I had a bit of imposter syndrome, which I
Okay.
think a lot of people have. And
100%.
actually, I realised in the last year or so, I do know more than I thought I knew, but also it doesn't matter what I don't know.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. I used to maybe a few years ago be in a room with people that I felt that, they were probably more knowledgeable than me on something. And then I felt, oh God, am I worthy of being here? I think a lot of people have that. And I think LinkedIn's really good for the fact that people talk about that a lot. But actually, it doesn't even matter. Like, yeah, who cares if they know more than you? You still know what you know. And if you don't, whatever, it doesn't matter. Who cares if people are judging? I think you've got to. I think I've learned to care less about what people think about me and just focus on what's important.
Nice.
That's
And
probably my
go and get the
greatest learning.
result for you and yourself and the business. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So what does the future look like? Where are you trying to go? Where's the business looking ahead in the next kind of year or so?
I think, as I said, like, the focus for us is on cracking the telco industry. I think we're getting there. You can't work with everyone, right? You can't be a recruiter who
Agreed.
works with everyone. Otherwise, you can't move people around. But I think when we've got to that position where we've got our dream client base that we work with, that we've got excellent relationships with, that we're partnering, that we're like an extension to their business. We have that with some of our clients already. It's amazing, they've written testimonials for us and things like that, and it's amazing to read that they see us like a part of their business. That's the goal, but to do that for more companies within the telco sector, really. And I think the other part is growth. I mean, we've hired 3 people who work with us and doing an amazing job delivering to the client. They're doing brilliantly. But I think the challenge for us will be finding more recruiters, because ironically, recruiters aren't very good at recruiting for themselves, weirdly. So I think finding those people, it's difficult one recruitment, because nobody really quite knows exactly what it is that makes somebody good at it or not.
Yeah.
It's a tough one, and we're learning that. But yeah, finding people is, for ourselves, is going to be quite key, I think.
Amazing. So kind of, if you were to start again today and give advice back to yourself on the day you started, what would that advice have been?
I think focusing on time management for me.
Okay.
I think when a year ago or so, I was probably not living by my diary, if that makes sense. Like I had been used to that before, and I kind of got out of practice with it. And you need to kind of you need to be living around that diary, using great tools like Trello for whatever works for you. Basically, however you organize yourself, make sure it's quite rigid. You're focused on, whether it's your to-do list each day, and whatever method works for you. That for me would have been better. I think I've got more of a grasp on that now. Far from perfect. I keep having to go back and remind myself how to work properly. But I think I've definitely learned to manage my time better, definitely learned to organise myself better. And I think that's the advice I would give to myself like a year ago or so.
Get organised, get disciplined, and then see that discipline through.
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing, amazing. Look, thank you so much for your time today, Ollie. I think there's been some great learnings in that, and some great knowledge and wisdom to pass on to other business owners and entrepreneurs on their journey. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Steve.
No worries. Cheers, Ollie. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.